So right now, about 95% of corporate artificial intelligence projects are just completely failing.
Yeah, which is an absolutely massive number.
It's staggering, and to fix this incredibly expensive problem, Fortune 500 companies are like quietly handing the keys to their most sensitive digital systems over to people who, well, people who don't even officially work for them.
Right. It's a completely wild dynamic.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are thrilled to have you with us today as we dig into what's happening behind these closed boardroom doors. We've got a really fascinating stack of sources to explore today.
We really do. We're pulling from the 2025 Data IQ Executive Survey, corporate compliance reports from Audit Board and EY, some deep IBM research.
Yeah, and also industry analyses from Namaste Management, Oval Edge, Umbrex, and the Interview Guys. So the mission of this deep dive today is to really explore this messy head-on collision of AI hype, huge data governance failures,
And this radical new trend in corporate leadership, right?
Exactly, a leadership trend that's currently operating in just a complete legal gray area. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. Because it really is, it's kind of a perfect storm. And to understand how these highly traditional corporate structures are suddenly relying on, invisible leadership, we actually have to start with the catalyst driving the panic.
Right, the AI gold rush.
Exactly. We have to look at the artificial intelligence gold rush and this massive gap between expectation and reality.
Because the disconnect is just staggering when you look at the numbers. I mean, if you just read the press releases, you'd assume every major company is completely revolutionizing their business with AI right now.
Oh, for sure. It sounds like everyone has it figured out.
Right, and our sources do confirm that initial frenzy. Like, according to the 2025 Data IQ survey, a near unanimous 98.4% of Fortune 1000 organizations are actively pouring money into data and AI investments.
Almost everyone is playing the game.
Literally almost everyone. But then you look at the MIT report that was cited by IBM, which reveals that 95% of generative AI pilots are currently failing.
Yeah.
95%. 95%. So what is the mechanism here? Like, how are thousands of brilliant executives failing so consistently to get this tech off the ground?
Well, it's because the bottleneck isn't the technology itself. The algorithms are incredibly capable, and the raw computing power is widely available to everyone now.
So the tech works.
The tech totally works. The failure point is the organizational reality they're trying to drop that technology into. According to the insights from Namaste Management, C-suites are just so eager to greenlight these shiny new AI pilot projects, but they're doing it without evaluating their own internal data integrity first.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they're basically trying to plug highly advanced logic-based AI systems into broken, fragmented data ecosystems.
So it's an incompatible fuel problem.
Right.
A lot of people talk about AI like it's $1 million Formula One engine, but an engine is basically useless without fuel. And AI's only fuel is data.
Right, data is the fuel.
So if a company's internal data is siloed and messy, it's the equivalent of taking contaminated, sludgy fuel and pumping it into that pristine F1 engine.
It's not going to end well.
No, it doesn't just stall, it violently destroys the engine from the inside out.
That is precisely how you have to look at it. And Namaste Management points out exactly why that fuel is so contaminated. They really emphasize that AI literacy and data literacy absolutely must be combined in the workplace.
Okay, meaning you can't have one without the other.
Right. If a company lacks foundational data literacy, their AI pilot failure rates inevitably hit that 95% mark. Like, consider a massive retail company as an example.
Okay, tracking.
Suppose their supply chain data is stored in one format, completely isolated from their marketing department's data. So they buy this state-of-the-art AI to predict inventory needs.
Makes sense.
But because the AI literally cannot access or read the marketing team's upcoming promotion schedule, it tells the company to order, winter coats in July.
Oh, wow, because it just didn't know about the big summer coat sale or whatever.
Exactly. The algorithm worked perfectly based on what it could see, but the data diet it was fed was fundamentally broken.
Which brings up a critical question for you, the listener, especially if you work in any kind of management or operations role. If the secret to making this technology work is simply having high-quality, reliable data.
Which sounds so simple.
Right, it sounds basic. Why are companies struggling so much to actually govern and clean their data? I mean, we've been talking about the big data revolution for over a decade now. This shouldn't be a new concept.
No, it shouldn't be. But acknowledging you need to govern your data and actually executing a complex data governance strategy are two entirely different universes.
That's fair point.
Just look at the compliance data from Audit Board in our stack. Right now, only 25% of organizations have fully implemented AI and data governance programs.
Only 25%. That's wild.
Yeah. The vast majority are stuck in this perpetual purgatory of merely drafting policies. Like, they're incredibly concerned. 80% explicitly cite AI risks as a major worry, but they simply cannot get out of the planning phase.
Wait, I have to pause you there because I'm looking at our notes, and the corporate world is absolutely flooded with established frameworks designed to solve this exact problem.
Oh, there's no shortage of frameworks.
Right. You have DAMA, DMBOK, which is, widely considered the gold standard for data management. You have COBIT, which is this massive framework for IT governance and risk.
Yep.
And then there's DSAM, which companies use to benchmark their data maturity. So I guess I want to push back on this idea that companies just don't know what to do. If we have these literal encyclopedias of best practices, why can't company just hire a smart IT professional, hand them the DMBOK manual, and say, execute this?
Well, it's a fair challenge. But the insight from OvalEdge in our sources perfectly addresses why handing an IT professional a manual just doesn't work. Those frameworks are brilliant, but they are incomplete.
Incomplete how?
OvalEdge points out that frameworks like DMBOK or COBIT are exceptionally good at answering the why, the what, and the who.
Okay.
They will tell your IT professional, you must establish data lineage to track where sensitive information moves. Or, you must protect customer privacy. But they completely failed to answer the how.
Okay, I see. So they're essentially theoretical blueprints, not construction manuals.
Exactly. They give you the strategic mandate, but they do not give you the operational playbook.
Right.
It's one thing for a framework to mandate that a company masks sensitive data. It's an entirely different skill set to know how to physically write the Python scripts required to extract metadata, parse the logic, and automate the masking of social security numbers across 50 different legacy mainframe servers that were built in the 1990s.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
It is. The frameworks tell you what the finished house should look like, but they don't teach you how to pour the concrete.
So if these comprehensive frameworks give us the blueprint, but completely fail to provide the actual construction crew, who is physically building these data pipelines?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because that desperation, that realization that a theoretical manual isn't going to save a failing AI project, seems to be what drives companies to hire specialized human beings, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
When execution fails, companies panic and try to hire a full-time chief data officer, or CDO, someone who has actually poured the concrete before. But there's a massive structural barrier there.
A huge one. I mean, according to the Data IQ survey, the CDO role is an absolute revolving door. They found that 53.7% of CDOs have tenures of under 3 years.
And a lot don't even make it that long.
Yeah, a quarter of them don't even last 2 years in the role. And these are not cheap hires. A full-time chief data officer at a mid to large organization commands a massive premium.
Oh, definitely.
We're talking $250,000 to $500,000 a year in base salary, plus massive equity packages. So companies are paying an absolute fortune for executives who rarely stick around long enough to actually finish building the infrastructure.
And this specific friction, the desperate, immediate need for technical execution, combined with the really expensive failure of the traditional full-time executive model, has birthed something entirely new.
Right.
A radical hiring model that's quietly restructuring how corporations operate.
Enter the fractional executive. According to the deep dive report from the interview guys, this is now a $5.7 billion industry.
Wow.
And it's growing at a staggering 14% annually. In just 2 years, the number of fractional executives doubled from 60,000 to roughly 120,000.
It's a fundamental shift in the C-suite architecture. Instead of paying that $500,000 package plus benefits and equity for a full-time CDO who might quit in 18 months, a company pays a fractional leader anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 a month. And in exchange, that executive works roughly 15 to 20 hours a week for the company.
Let's look at the math on this for a second, because the term part-time executive sounds almost like an oxymoron to me.
It does sound weird, yeah.
If they're working 15 to 20 hours a week per client, and they have, say, 3 to 5 different companies on their active roster, they're still working 50 to 60 hours a week.
Oh, absolutely. They aren't semi-retired.
Right. They are acting as these elite strategic mercenaries. But what are they actually getting done in 15 hours a week? Like, how does someone drop into a massive corporation on a Tuesday and actually move the needle?
They move the needle because they bypass the usual corporate theater. The ROI data from the Namaste Management and Umbrex sources breaks down the exact mechanism of how they operate, which is, by the way, why private equity firms absolutely love this model.
Oh, I bet they do. Private equity loves anything efficient.
Exactly. A fractional executive isn't there to play office politics, mentor junior staff, or sit in endless theoretical alignment meetings. They parachute in to execute highly specific optimizations.
Give me an example of that.
Well, the Umbrex playbook notes that these fractionals can often cut a company's cloud warehouse cost by 25% and drive a 3% boost in EBITDA.
Okay, and just for those outside the finance world, EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's essentially a measure of a company's raw operating profit.
Right.
So a 3% boost to raw profit is massive for a mid-sized company. How exactly are they pulling that off in part-time hours?
By ruthless technical consolidation. They look at the company's cloud architecture and immediately notice that, say, 5 different departments are running separate analytics queries on the exact same data set.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and the company's being charged by Amazon Web Services for every single redundant query.
Because they're not talking to each other.
Exactly. So the fractional executive establishes strict internal data contracts, consolidates the queries into a single pipeline, cleans up the procurement data, and literally slashes the cloud bill by 25% overnight.
That's incredible.
And then, once that plumbing is actually fixed and the AI pilot can finally run on clean data, they leave.
It sounds incredibly efficient on paper. But there has to be a catch, right? Like, you can't just rent your entire leadership team and expect the company to maintain its soul.
You really can't.
How can you possibly build a cohesive company culture if the people at the very top are just renting you their Tuesday afternoons?
You've identified the exact limitation of the model. The sources explicitly state that fractional executives excel at strategy and high-leverage decision-making, but they are entirely incapable of building deep organizational culture.
Because they just aren't there enough.
Exactly. They simply do not exist within the building long enough to generate that kind of cultural gravity.
Yeah.
They're there to fix the pipes, not to act as the spiritual leader of the organization.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Having these highly skilled mercenaries parachute in to fix your AI pipelines might solve the technical bottleneck. But according to the legal analysis in our sources, it has quietly generated a massive ticking time bomb of a legal and structural nightmare.
Oh, it's a $5.7 billion governance blind spot.
Yeah.
We are talking about 120,000 fractional executives who are actively making C-level decisions right this second.
They're controlling budgets that run into the tens of millions of dollars. They have the authority to hire and fire full-time employees. They're signing binding corporate contracts.
Yep.
They are architecting massive generative AI systems that interact with customer data. But, and this is the part that truly exposes the illusion of the corporate hierarchy, they do not officially work for the companies they are running.
No, they don't.
Officially, on paper, they are 1099 independent contractors.
Which creates an absolute crisis of authority without accountability.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, traditional corporate governance relies on very clear fiduciary duties. Full-time executives carry personal liability for their actions, which is why they are protected by standard directors and officers insurance, commonly known as D&O insurance.
Oh, right.
D&O policies act as a shield. If a full-time executive makes a massive mistake and the shareholders sue the company, the D&O insurance covers the legal costs and prevents the executive from losing their personal assets.
Okay, makes sense.
But fractional executives exist completely outside of that protection.
Right, there's a massive coverage gap. So imagine this scenario, which builds perfectly on the legal logic from our sources. Let's say you have a fractional chief financial officer at a fast-moving pre-IPO tech startup.
All right, pretty common scenario.
Right. They make a sweeping, aggressive accounting decision to clean up the company's books before going public. But it turns out that decision violates regulations set by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. The company gets sued by angry investors. The board of directors points the finger at the fractional CFO, but the CFO says, hold on, I'm just an independent 1099 contractor. I don't technically work here. I was just following the company's broader strategic direction.
Exactly. And when the dust settles and they go to tap into the insurance to cover the massive legal fallout, The company's D&O policy almost certainly contains clauses that explicitly exclude independent contractors from coverage.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the fractional CFO's own personal professional liability insurance likely will not cover decisions made with apparent sweeping executive authority. Literally nobody is protected. The lines of liability are completely blurred.
And if we look at the data on how these fractional executives are actually being sourced and hired, the risk profile goes through the roof.
Oh, it's so informal.
Right. The Interview Guys report points out that a staggering 73% of these fractional executives secure their clients through informal networking and referrals.
73%.
They aren't going through massive, rigorous corporate vetting processes. There are no exhaustive board interviews or deep dive background checks by HR. It is entirely word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's just one CEO saying to another, hey, I know a guy who fixed our AI data pipeline. You should rent his LLC for your project.
And if we connect it to the bigger picture, you can suddenly see why corporate attorneys and risk managers are basically losing sleep right now.
Oh, absolutely.
You have independent contractors, hired through casual networking, holding the keys to the kingdom. They're implementing advanced generative AI systems that ingest and process highly sensitive, regulated customer data.
Yep.
If that fractional chief technology officer implements an AI system that hallucinates, or worse, inadvertently causes a massive data breach that violates GDPR privacy laws in Europe, who is actually at fault?
That's the billion-dollar question.
Is the corporation liable for inadequate oversight of a contractor? Is the contractor's personal LLC liable for negligence? The legal system has not yet caught up to the reality of how these businesses are actually being run.
So what are the people at the very top, like the corporate boards of directors, doing to manage this? Because they are watching AI technology move at the speed of light while simultaneously relying on ghost executives who operate completely off the official organizational chart.
It's a lot to manage.
How are boards attempting to measure success and mitigate risk in an environment that is this chaotic?
Well, they're definitely waking up to the threat, even if their current methods are a bit clumsy. EY data shows that AI oversight by corporate boards has tripled recently.
Okay, let's start.
Right now, 48% of Fortune 100 companies specifically cite AI risk as a formal responsibility of the board. But there is a massive, dangerous gap between acknowledging a risk exists and actually understanding how to assess it.
Right, because the data from Risk Connect shows that while 60% of companies are aggressively exploring agentic AI, which are AI systems that don't just answer questions, but are designed to take autonomous actions on behalf of the company, 55% of those exact same companies haven't even bothered to assess the risks of doing so. They are just rushing forward, completely flying blind.
And part of the reason they are flying blind is that they are desperately trying to use outdated industrial metrics to measure a completely new technological paradigm. Which brings us back to the IBM source. A major CEO study found that only about 25% of AI initiatives are currently delivering their expected financial return on investment.
Only 25% are hitting their ROI.
Right. Because of that, nervous corporate boards are demanding strict, short-term financial returns on every single AI pilot program to justify the spend.
But the IBM research explicitly suggests that forcing strict ROI metrics this early in the technology cycle is just the wrong move.
It is completely counterproductive. There's this brilliant quote highlighted in the IBM source from NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang.
Oh, I love this quote.
Yeah, he argues that forcing software engineers to justify early AI experimentation with hard, immediate ROI is like asking a child to make a business plan for a hobby.
That is such a funny way to put it, but it's a fantastic analogy. It perfectly captures that tension between exploration and corporate reporting.
It really does. Huang's overarching advice is that companies need to embrace messy, broad experimentation right now. If corporate boards rigidly filter every single AI idea through short-term revenue metrics, they are going to miss the truly transformative long-term opportunities.
Because they're playing too safe.
Exactly. The soft ROI is just as valuable right now as hard revenue. For example, discovering that a specific large language model completely hallucinates when it tries to analyze your internal legal contracts might not make you any money today, but that institutional learning prevents a catastrophic disaster tomorrow.
Right.
Learning what doesn't work is a vital return on investment.
So what does this all mean for you as you navigate this rapidly shifting landscape? Let's sort of zoom out and look at the entire board.
Yeah, let's look at the big picture.
We are entering an era where you are expected to balance the wild, unregulated, and absolutely necessary experimentation of artificial intelligence with the very real existential threat of multi-trillion-dollar cyber breaches and massive regulatory fines.
It's a tightrope walk.
And you have to do all of this while your organization's leadership team, the very people architecting the systems and making the strategic decisions to navigate this minefield, might not even be on the official payroll.
Right.
They might be 1099 contractors who share absolutely zero legal liability with your company if everything goes up in flames.
It represents a profound structural shift in how business is conducted globally. The traditional frameworks we have relied on for decades are fundamentally cracking under the pressure.
They really are.
Whether we are talking about how we govern technical data using theoretical blueprints like DMBOK, or how we govern human accountability using standard employment contracts and insurance policies, those old models are just broken. They're being rewritten in real time right in front of us.
Exactly. The key takeaway from our sources today is that AI literacy and data literacy are no longer just impressive skills to put on a resume. They are the absolute baseline competencies required for corporate survival.
Absolutely.
But the management models we're currently using to implement those technologies are held together with duct tape, informal networking, and a lot of wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's pretty precarious. My overarching advice for anyone trying to navigate this chaos is to practice relentless, uncompromising critical thinking. Do not simply accept the official corporate org chart as reality, and do not assume a glossy policy document actually protects you.
That's great advice.
Ask the hard, mechanical questions in your own workplace, like who physically owns and cleans the data in your department? Who holds the actual legal liability for the new AI tools your team is deploying?
Yeah.
And who is genuinely making the strategic decisions behind the scenes? Maintaining multiple perspectives and demanding absolute clarity on accountability are the only ways you are going to survive the sheer volume of information overload and structural illusion we're seeing in the market right now.
I completely agree. You have to look past the titles and look at the actual mechanics of what's happening. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Okay, let's hear it.
We started this deep dive talking about the rigid illusion of the corporate pyramid and how boards are now perfectly comfortable handing massive million-dollar decisions to part-time, fractional human contractors who sit entirely off the official org chart.
Right.
Well, if the corporate world is already perfectly comfortable outsourcing ultimate executive authority to transient mercenaries who bear no legal liability, what happens when those highly skilled fractional executives realize they don't actually need to do the work themselves?
Oh, wow.
Imagine a near future where a fractional chief data officer utilizes highly advanced AI clones of themselves to work 50 different executive jobs simultaneously.
That's real, yeah.
You could have a Fortune 500 company paying top dollar for elite human C-suite expertise, while a machine quietly runs their entire infrastructure from the shadows.
That completely redefines the concept of a ghost executive.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating and honestly entirely plausible evolution of where this is headed.
Just something to